I signed the contract for a celebrity divorce reality show. Riley slapped my shoulder, her laughter booming. Another PR stunt for Hayes' new movie? You really go all out. Everyone assumed this was just a spicy game for a couple who had dominated the tabloids for a decade. They scrambled to play matchmaker, rooting for our inevitable reunion. Even Hayes, a man who practically invented emotional unavailability, was bending over backward, throwing clumsy little surprises my way. But no matter how hard he played the perfect husband, my vote at the end of every episode never changed, still want a divorce. The viewers ripped me apart online, spamming the comments that I didn't deserve a man like him. Until the season finale. When I held up my divorce card one last time, Hayes shattered. He dropped to his knees right there on the stage, his eyes bloodshot. Ilara, I have never done anything to betray you. Why won't you give me just one more chance? I let out a dry laugh. Fine. I'll give you 3 chances. 3 questions. Answer just one right, and I'll drop the divorce. A collective sigh of relief rippled through the studio, Hayes included. When it came to knowing Ilara, Hayes was the undisputed expert. Nobody else even came close. Then I dropped the first question, and the room went dead silent. In our 3rd year of marriage, my cravings suddenly shifted. I stared down at him. That year, what was my absolute favorite fruit? The audience visibly relaxed. The tension drained from Hayes' shoulders, replaced by his trademark, confident smirk. Ilara, that's too easy. Don't you want to ask something a little harder? I simply shook my head, scribbling my final answer onto the card before sliding it across the table to Carmen. I am sticking with this one. Hayes practically slashed his marker across his whiteboard. 2 seconds later, he flipped it around. Apples. A wave of sighs echoed through the crowd. Serena, the guest panelist, current Oscar frontrunner, and his steamy co-star, leaned into her mic with a teasing laugh. Looks like Ilara is just throwing a tantrum. She votes for divorce every week, but her heart is clearly still wrapped around Hayes. You two are impossible. Are the rest of us just pawns in your little role play? I ignored her toxic little jab. My eyes stayed locked on my overly confident husband. Are you sure about that answer? Hayes leaned back in his chair, a smug smile playing on his lips. Every ounce of his earlier panic vanished. Ilara, back when we could barely afford rent, you skipped buying dinner just to buy apples. If that isn't love, what is? We even fought over it, remember? He softened his voice, turning on that magnetic Hollywood charm. Besides, when it comes to you, I couldn't forget a single detail even if I tried. He stared at me with those deep, devoted eyes, and the live audience erupted into deafening squeals. I stared back at the face I used to worship. Not a single word left my lips. I just slowly shifted my gaze to Carmen. Carmen blinked, shaking off her own fangirl days. She offered an apologetic smile and lifted my answer card, fully prepared to declare Hayes the winner. Her eyes scanned the ink. The smile slid right off her face, replaced by pure shock. Hayes. Carmen swallowed hard. You're wrong. The entire studio went dead silent. The air snapped so tight you could hear a pin drop. The smirk froze on Hayes' face. But he was a seasoned pro. He quickly forced his expression back into an easy, relaxed mask. Ilara, are you doing this on purpose? I remember those paparazzi shots of you buying apples went viral. The fans even started calling you the Apple Queen. You were slicing them up in the kitchen every single day. The whole house smelled like an orchard. How could I possibly get that wrong? In the front row, Crystal gripped her glowing fan sign and stood up to defend him. Exactly. In your magazine interview back then, you said you were obsessed with planting fruit trees. If that isn't your favorite, what is? Ilara, you've been dragging Hayes through the mud all season. Can you stop pushing your luck? I tuned out the venom in the crowd. My gaze locked directly onto him. Hayes, do you even remember what happened that year? Hayes let out a cold, sharp laugh. Of course I do. I pissed off the wrong executives. Hollywood practically blacklisted me. If you hadn't stayed by my side and pushed me forward, I never would have made my comeback. That's why I don't get it. We survived rock bottom together. Why are you throwing us away now? He dropped his gaze. A perfect, cinematic shadow of grief crossed his features. His superfans in the audience aggressively clicked their cell phone cameras. Right. My voice stayed flat. You pissed off Ridley. You couldn't book a single audition for over 6 months. Until a low-budget indie film threw you a lifeline. They wanted you to play a mute orchard worker who falls for a city girl and gets left behind. You can barely find that movie on streaming platforms today. But that specific role saved your entire career. The underground buzz from that indie flick put you back on the map. It got you the blockbuster that made you an A-lister. Do you actually remember any of that? My throat tightened. I dug my fingernails into my palms to stop the tremor in my voice. Hayes furrowed his brow, looking lost. What does any of this have to do with the question? I stared at the man who claimed to know my soul, yet erased every real piece of me. A bitter laugh scraped up my throat. Did you forget? When that script first landed on our table, you refused to do it. You thought playing a dirt-poor farmer was beneath you. You almost tossed the script into the trash. I forced you to take it. I was the one who went out every morning, buying crates of apples and saplings. I spent hours in the dirt in our backyard, studying crop yields, memorizing the differences between every single breed. I filled notebooks with research. My notes built your character from the ground up. I baked in the sun. I did the grueling work. And you walked the red carpet to claim the glory.